Okay, so you might be wondering, what is the bystander effect? The bystander effect is when multiple people can take action in a given situation, but don't because they believe that someone else will do it. This means that the more people in the scene, the less likely it will help. And if you're alone or there are less people, the more likely they are to act. The bystander effect theory was developed and studied by Bystander and John Darley. Bystander was born in New York City on July 19, 1937. He went to Yale University, where he got a degree in behavior and culture. Later, he got a PhD in psychology in the University of Minnesota. He became professor at the Columbia University, and he was also director of the Institute for Research in Social between 1982 and 1988. Darley was born on April 3, 1938 in Minnesota, and has sadly passed away just 2 years ago. John was a PhD in social relations from Harvard. During his life, he obtained many awards, such as the Guggenheim Fellowship and Distinguished Scientific Award from the Society of Experimental Social Psychology, as well as many other awards. We can clearly see that both of these men were educated in psychology and human interactions. You might also be wondering, how did he come up with this theory? Well, it was because of a very infamous case that took place in New York City in 1964. The murder of a woman called Kitty Genovese. Kitty was stabbed right outside of her apartment, and it was witnessed by a lot of her neighbors, but none of them intervened because they were under the bystander effect, and they felt like someone would surely call the police or help her, but no one did. They relied on one another, and that caused them to not take action. And that makes you wonder, what would have happened if she only had one neighbor? Would that one neighbor have saved her life?
The experiment was conducted in 1968. It was done in a cubicle amongst a number of other cubicles in which they were taped of other students playing, and the subject thought they were real people. The experiment consisted in the diffusion of responsibility among the subjects who thought they were overhearing another student having an epileptic seizure, and whether or not they would help. In the case which the participants were told they were one of the two subjects, 85% of the subjects responded. In the case in which the participants were told they were one of the 6 subjects, only 31% of the subjects responded. This experiment involves the forensic psychological field with the murder of Kitty Genovese, by the application of psychology to lawmaking and the examination of witnesses, and also it involved the field of social psychology by analyzing the community, environment, and where they help or not.
So, to review the bystander effect, we must identify the variables that we have. So firstly, we have the dependent variable, that is the time it takes for the participants to seek for help, and the independent variable, that is the number of participants that are in a certain situation. Okay, so as the amount of participants increases, the amount of times to react and seek for help or take action of something will also increase, and then that's when a negative effect happens in the situation that's occurring. So apart from this, there are also ethical things that have to be taken into consideration, because many people won't help as they might think others are more qualified to do the work. For example, if you're walking in the street and there is a person having a seizure, you won't help because you might think there is somebody else that might be a doctor, and then he or she is the one that must take action of what is happening. Also, another factor are the fears. So if a person has a trauma with something and then they experience this similar situation, they won't help because subconsciously all the memories they have about their fear or trauma will come to their mind, and then they will get frozen. Normally when you ask a person if they think they will help whenever an emergency is happening, they think they would react and act in the proper way to help them or just to stop whatever is happening. But the real thing, and this was proved by the theory and the experiment, is that people tend to get frozen whenever they experience anything or see something that they're not used to. So if we were to repeat this experiment right now in 2020, I think the results might be a little bit different because our culture has changed. And this is because in the past people used to do what they studied for. For example, if I am a doctor, then I will only be and do what doctors do. But right now our world moves because of being creative, original, and more intelligent than everyone else. So we tend to investigate and work in different things. So we have a wider knowledge of not only what we study, but for other things in life. So there is a probability that we might do something, but at the end, if we get frozen or not doesn't depend on the knowledge we have, but depends on the preparation we have for these types of situations. And investigating a little bit more about this effect, this doesn't only happen in real, like person-to-person situation, but also right now in 2020 and now social media is really into this bystander effect because sometimes we see something happening like for messages or videos or something like that, and we do nothing because of the fear or just because we don't really know about what is happening, so we just ignore it because at the end it's just social media for us. We don't have it in real life in front of us. So, but it doesn't end up there. It is also a cause of the bystander effect. So to conclude, the bystander effect influences most people, not only in a person-to-person situation, but also via social media. And the more people involved in a situation, the less action it will take for them to solve it or just to react for trying to do something about it.
The bystander effect also affects schools. When kids need to present a project, they wait for someone to take charge and tell them what they need to do. So if everyone is waiting for someone to take charge, they won't present anything at the end. And this happens also like in social problems. For example, Malala, she didn't stay in the bystander effect. The other women that were born before they didn't do anything, but they still wanted to study and go to the university. But Malala was the only one that took place and do something about it.
Now that we know this information, it is important to put it to good use. Therefore, we need to ensure that whenever we come across a situation where the bystander effect is plausible, we need to take actions into our own matter or make sure that someone else is taking responsibility, because otherwise everyone is just going to suffer the bystander effect and not do anything because they're going to rely, someone else is going to do it, when in reality someone does need to take charge.